sooner or later it's going to say this hangout on air is live, and I'm going to continue this relentless pursuit of chasing mastery. And I've been pretty consistent every single day, and I like this. All right, so let me share my screen, and let me let me reflect on my readings of this domain. What is this thing called? Domain Modeling Made Functional by Scott Blashin. Uh, I'm reading this thing like if I were religious, I would be reading a Bible because it's inspiring, and it's like a manual for reconsidering how I design and build. And yo, I don't think there's other people doing this, so I'm embracing this, because I feel like I'm enlightened. I really like this book, So I read a part of the book where in the beginning of the book they were defining all these types, especially not just domain types representing nouns like a unvalidated um, order and then a validated order, and just types for everything to represent different states. To represent different states of business objects. Perhaps object isn't the right term, but yeah, okay. And but he didn't just discuss modeling types. He discussed modeling workflows in which every workflow will take in a command as input and will emit a collection of events as output. Okay. And so he basically created a type to define a function signature for all the workflows. And I'm looking at the example, and I'm consuming the paragraphs, and I'm like, yo, I understand that you're creating these types to represent workflows, and I can understand, or basically, you're creating these types that basically reflect type function signatures, but how do you really enforce that? Isn't that kind of optional? Like, how do you really enforce that these workflows are actually going to use the type that you're now declaring? Like, they don't have to. It's just wishful thinking. And when I'm chilling in Starbucks and I'm just consuming the info, I finally get to an area within the book where he articulates how to enforce that workflows comply with the intent of the function signature that they should, well, comply with, abide to. Yeah, I butchered that. But anyway, he basically shows how to enforce um, a function signature that a workflow should reflect or should be based on. And it was pretty cool. I never saw it before. So what does that mean? Well, I'm back on this Kaizen mobile because, well, I'm building a Xamarin, more than likely a Xamarin Forms app to basically, um, it's the mobile version of this Kaizen IO web app that I built, and there's some latency with this web app, and Kaizen IO just never launched. Okay, there we go. So this is the web app, and it basically crawls the internet based on the sources of content that you have specified, and periodically it will crawl those platforms to discover new content that you've published. For example, YouTube, WordPress, media.com, Stack Overflow, RSS feeds, etc. And you know, you could click on the profile. It's a performance bottleneck, but yeah, you get to feature your answers, feature your articles, feature your videos, feature your podcasts, and then you can drill down deeper by viewing everything, right? And then there's a subscription model where you can follow people. Well, I'm not logged in right now, but you can follow people. You can also unsubscribe. Yale, right? And this whole thing is written using functional programming languages. So this web application is written using Elm, and well, that's a web client. It was written using Elm, and the actual server that has services handles web requests. That's written using F Sharp, because I'm on this whole little campaign to prove that you don't have to have a PhD, you don't have to be a functional programming expert to build real world applications, just like we've been building them using Java and C# and all that other stuff. And I'm raising awareness that you can do the same thing using functional programming languages. It's not just for research. It's not just for statisticians. You know, I'm a prime example of someone that I would consider average, maybe a little below average, maybe a little above average. But I mean, I'm not a killer. I'm not elite when it comes to like software development. I just have an insatiable appetite to be better. Right. Anyway, so like that's the Kaizen. And when I read parts of that book about like, nah, seriously, we're going to rely on types everywhere, and I'm like, yeah, I don't understand how you're going to do that. But he does it, okay? Scott Vlashin does it. And he has me rethinking some things. So, like, I mean, I just woke up and, well, these are the bounded contexts, you know, this portfolio, this profile, subscriptions. These all represent the bounded context of this whole domain of the web app that I just showed you. You know, portfolio is siloed, isolated from this profile, which is siloed, isolated from subscriptions, you know. And well, okay. So, yeah, do we really need to have under this portfolio bounded context handle feature, right? Um, we could probably just say handle like this. And it's going to handle feature link, it's going to handle unfeature link, it's going to handle feature topics, it's going to handle view, okay? Because handle feature and then you pass in the view command, like that doesn't really go over well, right? And so this is me doing the Boy Scout rule and cleaning up things and leaving it better than when I first found it. Of course, I didn't really find this. I actually created it. But so same thing over here. Like, well, hold up. This might be different. Yeah, these are different because I have different commands. So that's okay. I think. And I could go over here. And this whole handle subscription, subscribe, unsubscribe, but it's within the bounded context of subscriptions. One would argue that you don't really have to say handle subscription when you're already in the subdomain of subscriptions, right? It should be implicit based on the umbrella that you're working under. Yeah. So this is very squiggly about. Let's try to build succeeded. All right, so red squigglies mean nothing. This events is not being used. Clean it up. Oh, come here. Well, it has to be used because, well, that's it right there. So that's another red squiggly thingy. All right, so like, let's go back to like types. Using a type system for everything, right? And so What does that? What does that really mean? All right, and I haven't really practiced. This is my first time. For some reason, I feel more motivated when I'm recording the video or streaming the video, so I feel like it put pressures on me to really digest and articulate what I'm learning, compared to if I'm just doing this disconnected offline. Then it's a lower probability of me verbalizing, and when I verbalize it, I don't know. I just feel like it sinks in deeper, right? It forces me to acknowledge certain concepts. I'm thinking out loud, and I think that's more powerful than thinking silently. Okay, so we have this integration folder, and that might be okay. Somewhere I need to put in, well, within integration, you have in the case common. In the case of common, there's a whole bunch of common um, types. All right. Common is what the server already has, the web server that is, when I built the web app. Data transfer is more, I don't know, it's kind of username friendly. Okay. So what what I want to do is, I'm not this stuff isn't common though, right? Because this is specific to, well, this is a client. This is client side. This isn't really integration. I can rename the folder, but a lot of the stuff like response and requests, like this is IO related, meaning this is integration related. We're integrating systems, and this is needed for various integration points. So I'm okay with this over here. Question is, if I really want to keep things focused and legible so that people can see where different modules are, they can see where different types are, and looking at the Solution Explorer, it makes logical sense for it to be there, then I feel as if we should probably have, let me see, let me go back to portfolio. I feel as if there probably needs to be something like, well, maybe keep things together that tend to change together, pull things apart that tend to change for different reasons. If I say that, then maybe it's okay to define a type right above, or the function signature right above, or let me say a different way. Perhaps it's okay to declare a type that basically defines the function signature of the function that we're going to use right below it. So what I mean is, this handle function, it takes a command and it emits some domain events. And so I could say this is portfolio, right? And so this type, I don't know, it could be uh, well, because it's a type, it needs to start with the cap H. This handler, or do I even need to call it a handler? Why can't I call it a workflow for subscriptions? And this is me thinking out loud, so it's perfectly possible for this whole name to change. Is this type workflow takes in a command, and I think I'm missing an M, and it emits events. something like that. It's a list. Okay, compiler appears to be happy. So we defined our workflow type function signature. I'm not sure what the right term you call it. And theoretically, to enforce that this handle function will basically comply with this function signature that we defined up here as a type, what I think we need to do is, I think we do something like, first, say it outputs an event list. Is the compiler still happy? Oh. Compiler doesn't like that. Do I need to put it in parentheses? And the compiler doesn't like that either. Okay. This is an event list, right? Or this says, hold up. Let me call this thing. Hold up. It's called events. But I have event here. Events. Something like that. Is the compiler going to be happy? No. Okay. So the function takes too many arguments or is used in the context where a function is not expected. Okay. Is there any way I can specify the output and still use this function reserve word? I don't think I could do this. Yeah, so I can't do that either. So what, am I forced to use a match statement instead of a function reserve word? Maybe. So what I'm saying is this will, if this takes a command, then we say command like that. Let handle command, and then we got delete function like this. And then down here, we could probably say command function like that. God damn, I'm so smart. You see how I did that? Oh, I'm a G, man. So we could probably do something like that, and the compiler is happy. Right? Yeah, I like that. My OCD is starting to take over. It 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 wants me to align the arrows like that. But I'm not sure if that's really pretty to look at versus just bring it back over here. Okay. Now, do I really need to spell out command like that? I would say preferably to spell everything out. Yeah, I'd rather spell it out. All right. So, oh, look go. We have this here. Now, well, Scott, we haven't really enforced the type signature for this handle function. Yeah, it has the same signature, but we're not really enforcing it. Like, you can still, for example, say X, which is an int, right? And the compiler will still build, and the handle function that we have, what's this over here? Oh, yeah. Hold up. Workflow equal, oh, yeah, I'm tripping. You just say int, something like that. Ink, right? And so you could change the signature function signature of this type workflow, and everything will still build, right? Even though your handle function, which is supposed to basically comply with that function signature that we defined as a type, well, it's not matching up, but everything still builds. So that's the issue, is how do you enforce that the function will adhere to the desired function signature that we basically defined as a type? All right, so this is where things get interesting, right? Because theoretically, based on my readings of this wonderful, this function, this domain modeling made functional, Lawson says, well, Scott, this is what you do. I'll show you how to do this, son. He says that your handle is, how does he say this? This is going to be interesting. He said, your handle, yeah, it's going to, this handle function here is not going to emit a list of events. No, it's not. The way that we make this adhere to the desired function signature that we defined as a type up here is your handle function is going to return a value that ultimately is a function itself. Oh, I gotta let that marinate, because I'm like, yo, what did I just say? But what he's saying is, he's saying that instead of this let handle take a command that emits an event list or a list of domain events, he's saying, no, your let handle, it's going to be a value, meaning that it doesn't, I need to be careful how I say this. It doesn't initially take in any, this handle function doesn't take any arguments, okay? Not explicitly like this. What it's going to do is, he's saying it's going to this handle's no longer a function, it's going to be a value. And this value is, the output of this value is going to be it's going to be a function, right? That we say is workflow, okay? So this handle is a value that whose output is going to be a workflow type, in which the workflow type is essentially this function signature right here. It's a function, right? But it's a type that represents a function. All functions that wish to leverage this specific workflow type must have this function signature of taking a command and emitting domain events. That's what he's saying, right? And so I'm like, yo, how does that work? And he says, I'll show you, right? And he says, this handle is a function. It's going to emit this workflow, which is a type of this function signature. And he says it's going to equal, he says, a function that takes a command, okay? And it's going to return a list of domain events. So theoretically, I should be able to do something like this. And theoretically, the compiler should be happy. And that is how you basically take an arbitrary function that you want to enforce complies with a declared function signature that we express as a type up here, and this is how you enforce it, right? That function you refactor to really be a value that will output a function. And this is how you do it. This is what I've learned from the book. Never knew, man, like that blew me away, you know? OCD second over. So I'm not sure if I should space it like that or if I should do something like that. Are you still happy, compiler? But that blew me away. And the compiler is happy. And that is how you enforce functions to comply with desired function signatures established as types up here. That blew me away. I'm like, yo, so how can we prove that, right? Well, okay. So if we say that this type workflow, instead of it saying type workflow equals command that emits a list of events, we can change the signature of this type workflow and say it's going to take an int. Okay. Now, hopefully I got this right. And we see a compile error, right? Because this handle was expecting to basically model this workflow function signature, but because we changed the signature up here, it's complaining saying, "Yo, this was supposed to take an int, but our implementation is this function takes a command." That's how you enforce it. Ah, it's beautiful. Like, yeah, yo, my hourly rate just went up because of this. I know this, and most people don't. Damn, that's dope, right? So like, yo, that's crazy. All right, so like, stop. That's it, you know? And so we can probably like do the same thing. We could probably go to like this profile bounded context and we could probably just do this exact same thing. In fact, they all carry the exact same thing. So like instead of duplicating this type workflow and sprinkling it in all these other project files, well, this now becomes common. All right. And so these are all separate, but ultimately they they can go in common unless I create. Oh yeah, so yeah, do something like this. Okay. Oh, no, hold up. No, I can't because the command is specific. Okay, so yeah, this is going to go because command is unique per bounded context. So I'm actually going to copy paste this because it has a different context. There's different commands based on different bounded contexts. So my bad. All right, so we go to, let me collapse this because this is confusing me. Our portfolio is what we just updated right here. Okay. Our our profile, we just copy paste it. Um, but we have different commands. So like this isn't really duplication. It's what's this right here? No, you are over here, my friend. And we have different. That's module events. What we want is registration events, authentication events, all that stuff, right? So we have more likely like a registration workflow. Probably cap that W. And that is going to take a command and emit a list of registration events. Okay. And so again, we we say that this handle registration is going to how's this going to work? Its output is going to be the registration workflow in which it is going to how does this work? It's a value whose output is a registration workflow. And then you can say something like who it equals a function that takes a command and we'll basically with that command, we pipe it into a function. I'm going to type a function over again, and the compiler is happy, something like that. Compiler, you should be happy. You should build, and it successfully builds. Okay, so that was the registration workflow. The other workflows that we need to account for is authentication. Where am I at? The other workflows are handle session, handle edit. Okay, so I mean it's very similar, right? So we have this session workflow, and the session workflow takes a command and it's going to emit. This says authentication events. We should probably rename this to session events. Something like that. Okay. We should use the same terminology and do something like that. Okay. And so the session events, this right here, and the red squiggly went away. All right. And so there's also profile events. And so we basically follow the same pattern. And we have session workflow is profile workflow. Command, it takes a command, and in this case, it emits, or the output is profile events, something like that. Okay. Now, the naming may sound off because we have profile events and then we say list. So maybe it's better that we just say profile event list and session event list. And hold on, registration event list, session event list, and profile event list, something like that. So if we make that edit, then we say registration event, and then we say session event, and then we say profile event, something like that. Okay. Now, well, hell's bells, then we should be consistent, and we should revisit the workflow that we did for portfolio, and we examine the events module here. And well, the reason why we call this events is because because the event word by itself is already reserved, but you can't call it you can call it portfolio event, right? Which is kind of verbose because we're in the portfolio bounded context, but we can't use the word event because that's already reserved by the framework or whatever you want to call it. So, or by the programming language, it's already reserved. So if we go to workflow, it emits a portfolio events list. Okay. And then we bring it back to our workflow over here. And now what we want to do is we just declared all these types to represent the various workflows, and now we need to enforce those types. So this handle registration, right? We already did. This handle session should, this stuff is all going to be copy paste with a minor edit. Okay. So this handle session going to be something like that, in which it's a session workflow like that, and everything else is pretty much the same, right? And we take the other one that's handle edit, and we follow the pattern, something like that. Profile workflow is what we're looking for, something like that. And yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so compiler, are you happy? Let me build. I do Control Shift B, and no, the compiler is not happy. And why aren't you happy, compiler? And it says that the namespace or module commands is not defined within our portfolio bounded context or our portfolio project. Really? Did I not save everything? Why are you complaining? Everything, this is commands over here, command. Why are you complaining? I don't even see any red squigglies. Why are you complaining? Yo, let's try this again. And no, you gave me the same thing. Oh, hold up. It says registration events is not defined, right? Because we removed the S and it's just registration event list. Okay. Now what? Talk to me, compiler. What else is on your mind? Hmm? It says I'm happy. I'm good. Keep on going. All right. So we're gonna keep on going. And so like we did the workflow for the profile context, right? We enforced functions to comply with the desired function signatures, right? And these function signatures, well, this is basically leveraging or leaning on F# type system to encourage correctness, right? So what do I mean when I say that? Well, what I mean when I say that is at a high level, I don't know if this is called type-driven development or type-driven design, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. Before we even start building out all these functions, we are basically modeling our entire domain off of types, whether these types represent specific uh, domain objects that our domain is going to rely on, uh, or if these types are going to represent the various operations that our domain requires in order to successfully solve whatever problems for a warehouse, whatever problems for accounting, whatever problems for sales, right? All this that we're doing is we're basically using types for everything. And at a high level, you will see types and you will see the domain of the system that we're building by going full throttle, identifying or declaring all the types that our model has to rely on. All the operations, again, are going to be represented as types. All of the domain objects, again, are going to be represented as types. And before we actually start writing functions, ideally, we have all our types laid out to serve as the foundation that everything else just falls into place and it has to adhere by because we're programming to rules. And I like that, man. I like it. And these rules are encoded as types, right? This workflow, this is a rule that this workflow must take a command and must emit a list of portfolio events. You can't implement a function that doesn't do that, right? And say that this function handles that workflow, or this function is responsible for this workflow. It's impossible. You can't do it, right? It has to comply with the signature right here. It has to conform with the signature right here, right? So what we have left is this Nikeza.mobile.subscriptions, and we go to this workflow over here, and well, yeah, we basically just do the same thing. So We say type. And type what? Well, we just call this work. Honestly, well, we could just, well, yeah, I'm not going to copy paste. Say type workflow, and it's going to take a command. Here, going to take a command, and it is going to emit uh, a list of notification events. All right, do that like that right there. And we just do something like, this right here. Yeah. Oh, no, where you go? Yeah. Oh, come here. Yeah. Something like that. And so we got that. And am I sharing my screen? Yeah, okay. That would have been a huge waste. All right, so we got that. And so now we say this handle function, you must comply. You handle function, you're not really a function. You are a value that returns a function that must comply with this workflow type signature or function signature, whatever you want to call it. So we say this handle emits, or its output is a workflow. I don't like that, man. And well, hell's bells, it's going to basically be some like this function that takes a command, and what it's going to do is it's going to, with that command, we're going to pipe it to a function, reduce syntax, something like that, and we should be good, like that. Ugh. The build succeeded, and that is how you enforce types. That's how you enforce operations to comply with the vision of the types that you designed with. How else can I say that? Well, type-driven design. Everything is types. If you're domain modeling made functional by Scott Vlashin's book, and I just articulated how to do that by me practicing out loud. That should be the name of this whole video series. It should be called Practicing Out Loud with F Sharp. And I'm probably going to create that title as a playlist and throw all this in there. All right, so like that's it, man. So let me check all this in this Kaizen mobile, and I have a flight. I'm leaving back to Cleveland. Hold up, let me see. So what do I do? I enforced workflows to be compliant. I don't know how to spell compliance. That looks right. Enforced workflows to be compliant with set function signatures or something like that. I don't know. Something like that, man. That's a semicolon. You need a period, right? Enforced workflows to be client with with function signatures. Something like that. Via type declaration, maybe. I don't know. This might sound verbose. Something like that. And then we say commit all and push. And I learned something valuable, man. Thank you. Like, good stuff. This book is good. This book is like, the last time I felt this way about learning is when I read the what's it called? Heads Up Design Patterns book, or Heads First Design Patterns book. That's the last time I felt this good about learning and practicing programming. Like, this book is the bomb, that's it. So I'm out. I'm Scott Nimrod, and hire me. I'm available, and I'm stopping this broadcast. Peace, South